Let's talk about equations of parallel and perpendicular lines. This question always shows up on every single air test every year. So firstly, remember that the equation of a line is y equals mx plus b. And m, if you'll remember, m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. So every equation that we write is going to look like this. Y equals a number x plus a number. So parallel lines means same slope. We did that in task 2 when we found slopes between points. Perpendicular lines means opposite reciprocal. Now that sounds terrifying, but opposite just means opposite sign. And so if the original slope is positive, the perpendicular will be negative. If the original slope is negative, the perpendicular will be positive. Reciprocal means flip-flop, as in upside down. So whatever the fraction is, you flip it over. So I just made this little table real fast so we could talk about some examples. If I know that the original slope is 5/2, the parallel slope is the exact same thing. So if the original is 5/2, the parallel is also 5/2. If I wanted the perpendicular slope of 5/2, it would be the opposite reciprocal. So firstly, I notice that this original is a positive number, so my perpendicular will be negative. And reciprocal just means flip it upside down. So it's 5/2 right now, so the perpendicular would be 2/5. And that's really it. This is not as scary as it seems. So if the original slope is -3, the parallel slope would also be -3. Parallel doesn't change. Perpendicular, though, remember it's the opposite reciprocal. Opposite, I notice that the original slope is negative, so my perpendicular slope will be positive. If you want to write a plus sign to help remind you, that's fine, but you don't need to. Reciprocal means flip it upside down. And there's kind of a problem here because there's no way to flip 3 upside down. But if you remember, any number in the world you can put over 1. So when I flip that upside down, instead of 3/1, it will be 1/3. Now, most of the times, these types of equations will give you the equation of a line and ask you to find the equation of a line that is parallel or perpendicular through a specific point. This is a great time to use Desmos. And you'll notice I even have it over here pulled up on the right-hand side because we're going to use the heck out of it. So this first example right here says find the equation of a line that is parallel to y equals 2x plus 4 and that goes through the point -3, 2. This is a pretty standard air question. This is how they're all formatted. So let's start with creating most of our equation and typing it into Desmos. Sorry about that. So let's start with creating most of our equation and typing it into Desmos. We know from the original equation the slope. If I look here, y equals 2x plus 4. If I look up here, slope is the number in front of x. So in this case, the slope is 2. And it asked for parallel. So because it says parallel, parallel means same slope. So if the original slope is 2, the parallel slope is also 2. So now we have a framework. So far, we know that our equation, our y equals mx plus b, will start with y equals 2x. So we can take that and type it straight into Desmos as y equals 2x. And you'll see that the line starts to pop up. Now, if you look here, we need it to go through the point -3, 2. So we're also going to type that into Desmos, put it on its own line, -3, 2. All right, here is where the guessing game starts a little bit. We need to either add or subtract something to the end of our equation, our y equals 2x, so that it goes through the point, right? So we can think of it this way. If we need this line to move up, we can add something. If we need this line to move down, we can subtract something. And we just have to guess and check numbers until it works. I notice that if this line goes up, as in the point is above it, it will go through. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to add something to the end of it. And you can pick any number you want to start with. I'm going to start with 10. Now, if you'll notice, I actually overshot my dot a little bit. So I'm going to just guess around, right? So I'm going to try 7. That undershot it. So now I know that it's somewhere between 7 and 10. And just play a guessing game. 8 seems to work. What I always do as just a little cautionary check is I zoom in just a little bit and make sure that that dot is really on the line. Sometimes if you're zoomed out really far, it can look close but not exact. So as soon as it goes through the point, we're done. Make sure you check it. Our final equation is the one you see here. Y equals 2x plus 8. And that's all there is to it. It's knowing what parallel or perpendicular means, and then guessing and checking on Desmos. So let's try this next one. It says find the equation of a line that is perpendicular. So let's underline that word. Perpendicular is a very important word. Y equals negative 3/4 x plus 5, and that goes through the point 3, 25 over 2. Don't let those fractions scare you. They throw that in, but as long as Desmos is doing most of the work, you're really fine. The fractions shouldn't be terrifying. So let's start off by figuring out what our slope should be. If I look at the original equation, the slope is negative 3/4, and it wanted perpendicular. Remember, perpendicular means opposite reciprocal. So if it starts off being negative, so my slope needs to be a positive number, and instead of 3/4, I need to flip it, which would be 4/3. So far, I have y equals 4/3x. So let's go ahead and get that typed into Desmos here. I've got that y equals 4/3x. Make sure that you're not typing the x down here, right? That shows up a totally weird graph, and that's not what we want. And I needed to go through the point 3, 25 over 2. Don't forget that the little slash underneath the question mark is how you type in fractions. So if I look here, I see again that this dot is above my line. So that means I need to add something. Let's start off. I usually start off with 10. Overshot it just a bit. Let's try 8. Ooh, 8. Undershot it. Now this is why I say zoom in. If you look, that looks like it's on the line, but it's actually not if you zoom in a little bit. It's just barely off. So let's try 9. And that overshot. So sometimes you do have decimals on these, and that is okay. So I'm going to go back to 8, and I'm just going to try a decimal. Let's try 8.5. That looks like it did it. And if I zoom in just a little bit more, yeah, that's definitely on the line, smack dab on it. So there is my full equation. Y equals 4/3 x plus 8.5. That's all there is to it. This last example is a weird one that doesn't often show up on the air test, but every once in a while it sneaks on. It says find the equation of a line that is perpendicular. I'm going to underline that because that's an important word. X plus 2y equals negative 10 and passes through the point 1, 3. The reason that this one is different, if we look up at our original equation to find slope, it had to be y equals mx plus b. And this one is not. So we've got to find a different way to find the slope for this guy. I'm actually going to take this and put it into Desmos. Desmos is always the answer if you don't know what to do. 2y minus equals negative 10. So if I look here and I zoom in just a tad, remember that slope is rise over run. So if I take any point, so there's a coordinate point, there's a coordinate point, I can count down 2 over 4. So the slope is negative 2 over 4. So the slope right now is negative 2 over 4. And if you maybe saw negative 1 over 2, that would have also worked. Or if you counted negative 4 over 8. Anything you get works. So the slope right now of this line, counting rise over run, is negative 2 over 4. But remember, I want perpendicular. Perpendicular means opposite reciprocal. Right now it's negative, so my new slope is going to be positive. And instead of 2 over 4, I need to flip that and make it 4 over 2. If you see that that is 2, that's perfectly fine. But remember, the air test doesn't make you reduce anything, so you can leave it as 4 over 2. From here, it's pretty straightforward. Y equals 4 over 2x. So far I know y equals 4 over 2x, and I know that it has to go through the point 1 comma 3. So if I look, this dot is just barely above the line. So I know I'm going to add something. I'm just not sure what yet. Since that's a really small distance, I'm going to try 2. Overshot. So let's try 1. Looks like it went through. If I zoom in just a little bit, it absolutely did. So there is my equation, 4 over 2x plus 1.